The humanity project that myself and Lee have been involved in for quite some time now is really trying to work out how to popularise people carving out their own space for democratic participation. So really self-organised democratic assembly work, which works in quite a different way to institutionalised citizens' assemblies that you might see put on by a government or something like that. When you do that on the ground with not much money and not a PhD and not £500,000 and not much cash and not much space, you end up having to learn how to make the best version that you can out of like what you've basically got. So we need to really work out how we can learn the best things that we can from the expert space and at the same time create a democracy that's basically affordable and then possible for people to do and for people to enact and empower themselves.
We have consolidated ourselves into this humanity project with the view of putting humans back at the centre of a 21st century politic. And what we're doing here is thinking about if we want to make a movement more broadly in which people from the bottom up can make decisions, what kind of forms of democracy are going to lend themselves to that? And of course, we've looked at citizen assemblies, sortition assemblies. These are the sort of big government sponsored types of events usually, which are hellishly expensive and the province of academics largely. What we're looking at is developing a new form of assembly, which is a popular assembly, which is affordable, cheap, and we can take to the community, our communities, to get involved and become part of a broader democratic culture. The aim of the project is to develop a movement that means the day after the general election, we've established a counter-democratic culture that is grassroots, that is authentic, and that is representative. And part of these discussions that we're having with disabled groups, with Black groups, with other groups, is to explore from your own experience just what your experience of democracy is, in the hope that at the end, your commentary will be able to inform the design process for a new form of popular democracy.
Being Black, the colour of your skin, we know is no longer enough. Just because they're Black doesn't mean that they either understand the issues or that they speak up when they need to for Black communities and the needs of Black communities. And therefore, I think when we look at talking to people about assemblies, I think we need to present it as this is another alternative. If you feel disenfranchised, if you feel nobody listens to you, if you feel you're voiceless, have a go at this. Let's look at this as something that might give you another option. I would hazard a guess that white working class communities feel similarly. When I've spoken to white people who are really impoverished, I've heard similar sentiments from them as I've heard in Black communities, Asian communities. But in every community, there are people who benefit and profit from the existing system, who will try and pull down anything that you try and promote. I think part of the political structures, the present major political parties, will be also some of the challenges that we face because they're also recruiting all the time and trying to convince people. And I like the fact that we're prepared to now acknowledge and shout out loud that there are no easy answers, there are no certainties. In fact, the world is made up of uncertainties. The world is made up of decisions that are about change. And people don't normally like change. So they will want to revert back and stay with the system that they think they know, even if it's not a good system for them. And so it's a big ask to ask people to move away from that perceived certainty, because there is no certainty in the world.
In the past, when I've run events and we've taken on a slightly indigenously informed approach where we have handed the power to participants early in the game. Do you have any questions? Is there anything you need? People haven't really known how to take that power. It takes a lot of encouragement and support to get people to. And I think that is something that is affecting the way people engage with democracy in a number of different ways, which is that even if you were like, you can go out right now and change like 3 things that are really affecting you, or even one thing for day, people will be like, oh no, well, what do you want to do? Like, it's all right. I think kind of linked to that, I'm particularly interested in how we approach giving people a taste of what it can feel like. We live in a very non-democratic world. And so I think that I'm particularly interested in how we can do this via TV, for example. But in general, I'm very curious about what spaces are currently democratic, how we give people a taste of that power, how we give people a taste of that democracy. So then they know, oh, actually, I have been listened to and talked to and seen change.
Mhm.
Now I understand that my government can do the same.
Part of my thinking, and it's quite simplistic, is that people act out of two primary things, isn't it? Fear of loss and hope of gain. If we could in some way try to identify what those fear of loss is, and what the hope, i.e. the gain that people think they can achieve. And the other thing I think is useful, I think will be useful, is around having, when I say figureheads, I mean that very loosely. People want to see who is and where they're going, and how we present this, and that could be multiple figureheads, but there needs to be somewhere, some visual thing that people identify and see. And the second part of that is how we get column inches, get the odd comment in the so-called mainstream media, because those are the the small drip effects that sort of helps to coalesce the individual citizens' juries that we have in the conversations. That links to the whole notion of allyship, and those allies may be very intuitive, but also they may be counterintuitive, and sometimes the most counterintuitive allies can help the program and the project and initiative and gain a certain level of pace.
Stuff that I've done, that we've done in the past, is like formal juries and assemblies. And Lee, I would love our assemblies to cost 100 grand, and they don't. So I'm not raking the cash in because of the juries and assemblies. So these spaces are amazing, and they're beautiful, and stuff that comes out of them can be really, really incredible. I want to ask you, do you think that the more formal assemblies and juries that we run, do you think that they could actually be causing damage? And I wonder if we can support each other in what we're trying to do. Of course, I share all the concerns that you have about people like me dominating these spaces, middle-class, straight, white blokes. But I wonder if we can still, as we go on this journey of democratic renewal, is there a space for lots of different models?
To come to your question specifically, I think there are lots of models out there. And partly what we want to do in the Humanity Project is innovate and see what's working. I think citizens' juries are a great idea, as long as they don't cost 100 grand. And they don't, clearly. And so you can have citizens' juries and all sorts. I can see young people getting involved in citizens' juries on the nature of the criminal justice system. How about that for a citizens' jury? That would be something, wouldn't it? Children in care, having a citizens' jury on the quality of care. So there's lots of things there and different models of assemblies and citizens' juries that can form, if you like, a series of options for a local community that where we engage with, we can say, look, you can think about an assembly, you can think about a citizens' jury, you can think about these other things, these other models. But what we're trying to do is we want to show you what power looks like, how much power you really have, that you're the most powerful people, in this whole political ecosystem. And when you come together, you can move mountains.